So where is the United States in Bible prophecy? Where is Russia? Where's China? What does the Bible have to say about this stuff? How do dreams and visions play into this? What can we learn from connecting current events with Bible prophecy and other people's dreams and visions? That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Viewer discretion is advised. We're going to be talking about some scary things. And if you don't like listening to things that might be a little frightening or a little scary, perhaps this would be the time to turn this video off and go watch something else. For those of you who like scary amusement park rides, that's sort of what this video is today. It is a sort of a scary amusement park ride. This is going to be a roller coaster. We're going to be covering a lot of things. Some of them are going to be Bible prophecies. Some of them are going to be current events. Some of them are going to be other people's dreams and visions. I'm going to be including some of my own in this video. And what I want to do basically is to connect some dots and see if we can't make sense of some of the things that we're seeing in the world today and combining them with Bible prophecy. I don't usually make videos about current events because my thinking is that you go to the Word of God first, you look at that, and then as you see things happening in the world, you can kind of make some one-to-one correlations perhaps. But what I really don't like is interpreting Bible prophecy in light of current events. But when we see current events taking place that have a high potential, a high likelihood of being fulfillment of biblical prophecy, well, then I think it's a good idea to take a look at them. So the first thing I want to do right now is to do a setup for this video in terms of Satan's plan. Satan has a plan. He's been working his plan for thousands of years. His plan is to take over the earth. He needs to use people to do it. So Satan has a plan to put his man, his person, as the ruler of the world. And if he can totally destroy humanity, and if he can get his entities to put on earth suits, basically to become body snatchers, take human bodies, he can rule the world through hybrids, basically. He can rule the world. And remember, AI cannot rule the world. Artificial intelligence can't rule the world. Fallen angels can't rule the world. Only people, humanity. God gave the dominion of the earth to people, not to machines and not to angels. And so this is an eternal law, and it cannot be broken. And so that's why Satan is always working through people. He worked through Adam in the garden. He works through groups of people, and eventually he's going to control the world or seek to control the world and humanity through his false son, who is going to be a person who is going to die and then come back to life again and be indwelt by Apollyon, the being who ascends from the bottomless pit. I've talked about how all the fallen entities are going to be brought to the earth during the last days, and the tribulation period is about bringing all of these demonic, fallen angel, watcher angel entities to the earth. And Satan will have this opportunity of putting his son as the ruler of the world and fallen angels inhabiting human bodies, ruling the world and exercising domain over the world and through fake people. This is something that is going to happen, and this is part of the story of Revelation. And the mystery of iniquity that Paul talks about is not sin necessarily. It's how Satan was able to take advantage of the fallen angels who procreated with human women and created the Nephilim. Thereby, when the flood came, the spirits of the Nephilim became the demons, and then Satan uses demonically infested people to forward the plan. So this has been ongoing since the dawn of time, okay, since the flood, since the Tower of Babel, when people came together in a cabal. Let us build a city. Let us make a tower. Let us make bricks. And let us have a name for ourselves. And in defiance of God's command to spread out all over the earth, they consolidated in this city of Babel. Kind of makes me think of a current agenda to get everybody in the cities where they're easily controlled. So the people who did this were a cabal of people. This is what their plan was. And Satan has used this Babylonian system, this cabal of people, and the names and faces change throughout the generations, but he uses people. Satan is behind this whole Babylonian system that's been at play since the Tower of Babel. That's what Mystery Babylon actually is all about. Mystery Babylon, the harlot, is this group of people that pass on demonically, satanically controlled power from one generation to the next, bringing it all the way up to the end. And here's the deal, is this current world system, which is the harlot system, it's the Babylonian, Mystery Babylon system, which runs institutions and non-governmental organizations that exercises power over the kings of the earth. That is the hidden hand and the deep state and whatever you want to call it. It's not the players that we necessarily see in front of us. It's the players that are behind the scenes that control what is going on. This system, the harlot Babylonian system, will be destroyed to usher in the Antichrist, who is a person who will rule the world as a king, who has a kingdom, who will get rid of the Babylonian harlot system, because that was a temporary placeholder until the beast would arrive. And then he would bring in his own people, the fallen angels who accompany him from the pit, the angels that fall from heaven, that are cast out of heaven after that war in heaven takes place. And all of these fallen entities will try to inhabit human bodies so that they can rule the world. That's the plan. Okay, that is the plan. So in order for Satan's son to rule the world, this present system has to be destroyed. And the people who are currently in power in the present system seem to be unaware of that fact. I think they think that when the satanic beast, the Antichrist, comes on the scene, that somehow or another that they'll be working together, that the beast and the harlot will have some kind of an arrangement where they work together. And the way the harlot's been doing it for years, she rides the beast. She's the one who controls the kings. The beast does not like this. He does not like the harlot, and he and the 10 kings will destroy the harlot. They'll destroy this present system that's being controlled by these agencies, these organizations. There are kings and presidents and prime ministers and, senators and all kinds of people who are part of that harlot system. But a lot of them are traitors, and they are useful idiots. Some of them, they really don't understand what they're involved in, and others have been promised things that they're not going to get. They have no idea that Satan does not have loyalty to them the way they may have loyalty to him. So they will be thrown under the bus. They're going to be taken out, and that's going to happen on the same day as the abomination of desolation. So the harlot system will be out the same day that the beast comes in. All right, it's the day the beast begins to reign. So what we have to see then is the collapse of this present system, and that includes the collapse of the United States, the collapse of major players who've been in power in the harlot system. Okay, and I consider most of the European countries, the United States, basically your Western nations, that have been the bigger players in this harlot system. So a lot of these dreams and visions that people have are about a sudden invasion, a sudden bombing, including EMPs and perhaps tsunami kinds of bombs that are placed off the coast of the United States, both the east and west coast, and foreign peacekeepers coming in to quell the chaos that's going on in the United States. And because of what I read in the Bible and how I'm seeing Bible prophecy play out, I personally give some credence to those dreams and visions that people have about those things. And I myself had it was just a moment in time where all of a sudden I had an awareness. I call it my moment of clarity, but an awareness that just prior to our being taken out of here, our rapture, that the United States will have collapsed, that Israel will be invaded. The Ezekiel 38, I believe it's the Gog Magog invasion. And I'm going to talk about this prophecy in just a minute in conjunction with what I read in Revelation 12. But there was this realization that the United States had collapsed, that Israel was not going to have anybody coming to her aid. There was going to be nobody who was able to do that. And at the time I had this sort of moment of clarity was, I think, in around 2018. And it was really long before I had done my most basic studies in the book of Revelation, although I'd been studying prophecy for like years. And my previous belief was that the rapture would take place on a day that was like every other day, and that the rapture would be what would initiate global chaos, that, once we're gone, then all of a sudden peace would be taken from the earth, there would be sudden destruction, so on and so forth. But after I had this moment of clarity, I realized that it's possible that I could be living through the collapse of the United States before the rapture. And then in 2015, before my moment of clarity, I actually had a vision, and I've shared this vision on a couple of other videos, where I saw words on my computer screen. This happened 3 times, and it says, China invades Taiwan and Jesus comes. So that the coming of Jesus for me is how I interpreted it, for, in a rapture kind of event, would happen either in conjunction with or shortly after China invades Taiwan. I put the Word of God at a higher level as being more important and more authoritative than anybody's dreams or visions. I just do not put a lot of weight on dreams and visions. That said, I don't negate them either. To me, that they're basically designed to be supporting evidence for the things that we read in the Word and the things that we see happening in the world. So I want to take a look at Revelation chapter 12. And I've talked about this so many times. I've done so many videos on this, that back in 2017, the Revelation 12 sign appeared in the starry heavens. And this was an alignment that some people say was a once in 7,000 year astronomical alignment. Some people say, oh no, this has happened before. But here's the deal. The fact is that the alignment perfectly lines up with what we read in Revelation chapter 12. It happened on the 70th anniversary of Israel becoming a nation in 1947. It happened in conjunction with people's expecting the return of Christ to be soon. And so this, to me, was the fulfillment of Revelation 12, verses 1 and 2. So this is the sign of the woman, okay, the great sign. Revelation 12 tells us there's another sign that takes place after that. We're going to use the same symbols of the dragon and the woman and a baby. Okay, only this time, instead of this being a starry alignment, something that's happening in the heavens, this is actually happening in God's heaven on the earth and we're going to need to decode the symbols to understand what is happening here. So the woman is Israel. Okay, in Revelation 12:1 and 2, the woman is actually Virgo, who is a representative of Israel. Okay, so there's a lot of layers of meaning here. There's which is very Hebraic. This is how the whole Hebrew prophetic mindset, even the way their letters are written and their words are written, there's many, many layers that you can go into. So this is not an unusual thing. There isn't just only one layer of meaning. There's multiple layers that you can sort of pull out here. So when we get to Revelation 12, verses 3 through about 6, we're talking about another sign. We're using the same symbols, but this time the dragon is standing before the woman. The woman is Israel. Okay, the dragon is here on earth. Okay, Satan is going to be here on earth. Verse 3 of chapter 12 says, another sign or a different sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems on his heads. And his tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. And I've talked about this in some other videos. This is not something that happened in the distant past when Satan cast a third of God's angels to the earth. When Satan took a third of the angels and brought them to his side of things, we don't know how many of the angels Satan took. We have no idea. People will say it's a third of the angels, but that isn't what this passage means. And this is the only place that people get that idea, that it's a third of the angels that Satan took with him. That actually came from, I think, Augustine. So, just throw that out. It's a bad idea. What this says here is that Satan took his tail and he cast a third of the stars of heaven to the earth. These are his angels. He casts a third of his angels to the earth. And it seems as though his angels, his stars, and stars are angels, it seems as though they are reluctant to come to earth because he has to make them go to earth. He doesn't make God's angels go to the earth, but he can make a third of the ones that he controls go to the earth. And so this is, I think, the beginning of what I call the weirdness of the things that are going to happen during the end times. This is the beginning of when fallen angels, fallen entities are going to start showing up on the earth. Later on, the pit will be opened and the angels that are in the pit are going to be released on the earth. Later on, all of Satan's angels will be cast to the earth. Later on, 4 angels from the river Euphrates are going to be released. All of Satan's fallen ones are going to be released to the earth at some point in time because he has a problem. He has a problem. He's going to keep 2/3 of the angels in heaven, and he has to bring 1/3 of them to the earth because some things are going to be happening on the earth that he has to combat, that he can't just let them happen unopposed. Now, how Satan's angels are going to look once they come to the earth, I think it's possible that it will look like aliens. And the reason I'm saying this is because he's done a very good job of planting this idea into basically our human psyche, the social construct. Our society has this idea of aliens, of UFOs, of mysterious things that we can't explain, that are in the air, that come to the earth. And this is just going to ramp up, and it's very possible that this whole alien thing that's how this is going to show up. The other thing is it could be just the appearance of these godlike beings, angels that show up as demigods or beautiful entities that say that they were the ones that created us and they've come back to see how we're doing or to help us out in some way, whatever. There's a backstory here. Satan has already planted several different backstories that can be brought to the fore that won't seem weird to us because those ideas have already been implanted in us. And They're done through movies, it's through stories, through television programs. It's, you know what I'm talking about. So Satan is going to cast a third of the stars of heaven to the earth. And then it says, the dragon stood before the woman who was about to bear a child, that he might devour her child when she brought it forth. So Satan is going to be on the earth, and it seems like he's actually going to be in the nation of Israel. The woman is Israel. The woman is the one through whom the Messiah came. And as we, as believers, are baptized into Christ, we become one with him. Our identity is his identity. So he's the man-child, the child who's going to rule all nations with the rod of iron, and so are we. Revelation chapter 2 talks about how Jesus is going to share his rule with us. And this has to do with people ruling with Christ during the millennium. So the woman is the nation of Israel, and she is going to be in travail. That's what we read in verses 1 and 2, that the woman was in travail. She cried out in pangs of birth. Travail, symbolically speaking, and this is all over, particularly in the book of Jeremiah, all over Bible prophecy, we read that travail has to do with invasion, with war, with calamity, men putting their hands on their stomachs like women in travail. This is the symbolism for war or invasion. So there's coming a time in conjunction with us being changed, okay? And I've done videos on that. I'm not going to explain that in its entirety, but there's going to come a moment in time when we as believers are going to be changed from mortal to immortal. Not glorified, but changed from mortal to immortal. That's the birth of the child. And then there is this assumed time period between the birth of the child and when the child is presented to God. And that is a 7-day window of time. And then the child is presented to God on the 8th day. That's when the child is caught up to God and to his throne. This word caught up is harpazo, rapture. This is the primary rapture passage for this rapture of kings and priests. This is the passage right here, because they're going to be caught up to God's throne room, and that's where we see the 24 elders in Revelation chapters 4 and 5. Verse 5 says, she brought forth a male child, one who is to rule the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was caught up to God and to his throne. And then it says the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God in which to be nourished for 1,260 days. The woman then is the remnant of Israel that will flee into the wilderness for the duration of the reign of the beast. So we know that this child will be caught up before the abomination of desolation takes place. But the part I want to focus on here is the travail of the woman. Okay, before the child is caught up, the woman is in travail. Before the baby is born, the woman is in travail. Before the child is born and caught up, Satan casts his angels to the earth, his stars to the earth, a third of them. And the woman is in travail. That is, Israel is going to be undergoing a war or an invasion. So now the question we ask is there a biblical war or invasion that is going to happen to Israel during the end times that the Bible talks about? And the answer to that is yes, and I think that is the Gog Magog invasion that we read about in Ezekiel 38:39. This is an alliance of nations to the north of Israel, led by a prince of Magog, who is the one who is the guard or the protector of this conglomerate of nations. At a time when nobody is expecting it. This is unexpected. This is not something that everybody is going, oh yeah, we expected this invasion to happen. This is going to happen out of the blue. God is going to put the hook in the jaw of Gog and bring him down to the land of Israel. God is in control of this. And that's something that we have to understand about everything during the end times, is that God is in control of it all. And after God has initiated this war in Israel, and after we're caught up to God and to his throne, God is going to hand the whole operation over to Jesus. Jesus is going to take the scroll. He's going to receive the commission to do all the rest of the things that take place during the end times. But this Gog Magog war is going to happen suddenly. Israel is not expecting it. Other people are not expecting it. I think that Russia is going to be brought down into Israel, and it's to take a spoil. It's to get the resources, of which Israel has many. Oil, natural gas, minerals, you name it. They've got it in this very small area of land. But the only way that I think that Gog would feel comfortable being able to invade Israel is if Israel did not have her walls up. That is, she doesn't have her protectors, her protection. And the United States military is a kind of a wall for Israel. It's a protection for her. If the United States is not able to come to the aid of Israel militarily, then Russia would feel very assured that they could claim the resources that are in Israel and go ahead and invade. And right now, Russia is in Syria, right to the north of Israel. Russia and Iran are buddies. Russia and China are making agreements and acting together as allies before this Gog Magog alliance goes into Israel to invade. Russia and China will act together to take down the United States. Actually, the cabal that's working behind the scenes wants the destruction of the United States as well. Okay, the U.S. has to collapse. Our banking system has to collapse. The U.S. dollar has to collapse. Basically, our economy will collapse. And once the economy collapses, it's the first domino that will affect the whole world. Because up until just recently, the U.S. dollar has been the world reserve currency. But now we've got BRICS coming online in August. And we've got all kinds of other things happening in the banking, financial sector that most people just yawn about. They don't really see that as being relevant to their individual lives. But all of that is playing into the collapse of the United States. And just the moral decay that's here right now. It's just obvious that we're in a major decline, that the kind of decline that used to take centuries to take place because of technology and because of the speed at which Satan is ramping these things up. He knows he doesn't have a lot of time left. He knows when this is going to end. He's well aware of God's 7,000-year week. And we're getting to the end of that 6th day of that big week, and that the millennium is about to begin, and Satan still has to get all of his ducks in a row. And that includes the collapse of the current system, of which the United States is a huge underpinning. Okay, you pull out the United States and you can sort of collapse all the rest of it. You pull out the dollar, you make sure that our military is undermined. You make sure that there's plenty of moral decay and adequate fuel for a civil war. And basically, you've ensured that you can control the rest of the collapse, especially when Christ starts giving permission to the riders on those horses. He gives them permission. He begins to authorize them to pull out the big guns and to really take everything down very fast. The collapse will happen so fast, it'll make your head spin. So if the rapture happens this fall. And by the way, the rapture happens within a context. That Revelation 12 passage where the sign of the dragon that talks about the child being caught up to God and to his throne, about the rapture of this man-child. This is in the context of a war in Israel, of Satan casting a third of the angels to the earth, a third of his fallen ones to the earth. Our rapture is in the context of a larger picture. So anyone who says that the rapture is signless is not interpreting Revelation 12. They're not interpreting it at all in light of a prophecy of future events. Most people just think this is something that happened in the past. The Revelation 12 sign may have happened, but it's irrelevant. It doesn't mean anything. The sign of the dragon, well, this probably happened in the distant past. This, even though when you start looking at it seriously, none of this happened in the past. This is not a prophecy about things from the past. This is a prophecy about things in the future, just prior to the rapture of people who are going to rule and reign with Christ. There's a context for the rapture. That is the point of the sign of the dragon in Revelation 12. The rapture is not going to come out of nowhere. It's coming out of a context. And part of that is a war in Israel. So here's the kicker for me. Here's what really got me thinking about things. And that is when you read Revelation, when you read Ezekiel 38 and 39, you realize, I think it's in Ezekiel 39:6, that God is going to cause fire to come down on Magog. So if Magog is Russia, which I think it is, part of the salvation of Israel at that time, God is going to rescue them, rescue the nation, is the idea that Magog is going to have fire raining down on them, that they're going to be bombed or destroyed. They're going to be out of commission. So if Russia is going to invade the United States, they have to do it before they are no longer an entity either, before they can no longer do such things. Okay, so if someone were to ask me, so Brenda, how do you see this stuff playing out? Okay, here's a scenario that I would give you right now. And that is assuming that we're raptured in 2023, in the fall of 2023, on the 8th day of Tabernacles. Okay, so we're raptured this year. This is how I see the events playing out. If we're not raptured this year, I still see the same order of events that would happen this year, only they'd be next year. Okay, so here's how I see the order, is that later on this summer, with the formation of the BRICS economic alliance and the basically the rug being pulled out from under the dollar, and we have this huge monetary inflation that's been going on. There is no cap on how much the U.S. can be spending right now. Our government can spend as much as they want. There is no cap. There's no limit. They can spend as much as they want, and they're doing that. They're just spending money. Okay, tons and tons of it, trillions of dollars. And that is all going to come home to roost. And by the end of August, beginning of September, we would see a huge collapse, economic collapse, and everything that goes with it, including all the social disruptions, civil war, so on and so forth. Right about that same time, I can see China invading Taiwan. And we have given Taiwan assurances that we're going to go over there and help them. So while the U.S. is helping them in Taiwan, and while we're also over in Europe as part of NATO, the United States is basically going to not have the military protection here at home. We're going to be just spread out over the whole world, and particularly in the Far East and also in Europe and who knows where else. And China and Russia will use that to then mobilize their assets that are basically already here in the States, that are in Venezuela, that are in Cuba, that are in Panama, that are in Mexico, that are in Canada, that are off the coasts of both east and west coast of the United States, mobilize their assets and take over the United States, may or may not be in conjunction with an EMP blast. Probably could be in conjunction with these tsunami bombs that can be planted off the coasts and cause radioactive tsunamis. When we are in the middle of our own chaos here in the United States, Russia will go down into Israel. And we're not going to, the U.S. will not be able to help. Russia will go into Israel and this war will begin. And I think that prophetically speaking, the travail of the woman will begin right around the time of the Feast of Trumpets. That this is going to be the start of that Gog Magog invasion. And this war will last for about 2 weeks. And at the end of the 2 weeks, God will put an end to this. There'll be a huge earthquake, and you can read everything that God is going to do, hailstones and so on, in Ezekiel chapter 38. And then when we get to Ezekiel 39, you read about fire being rained down on Magog. That's the destruction of Russia. I think that's how that's going to happen. So Russia will be put out of the picture as well. And it says the coastlands too. I don't know who the coastlands are. I don't know what nations that comprises, but obviously it's coastal countries, any countries that are along the coast somewhere. And that will be a bad thing as well. I think the Islamic nations, like Iran, for example, they'll survive this and they'll become a part of the beast conglomeration. When the beast has his 10 kings, they may be a part of that 10 king thing. And I think most of the 10 kings will be Islamic nations. So the end is going to come really suddenly. The end for the United States. And shortly thereafter, Russia will come to an end. The coastlands, whatever they are going to be destroyed. And that's the context that the child is going to be born in. That is, believers are going to receive their immortal bodies here on earth. 7 days, okay, a male child is with its mom for 7 days. And then on the 8th day is when it's presented to God. That's the day the child of believers who are going to rule and reign with Christ, that's the day, the 8th day of Tabernacles, when we'll be caught up to God and to his throne. So our birth will coincide with the end of that war, because once the baby is born, the hard labor stops. Okay, so the war is over, the baby is born. The war is over in Israel, Russia is destroyed. We are changed from mortal to immortal. So that's kind of how I see things playing out. And as I look, at the things that are going on in the world, all of this seems rather plausible right now. I'm just connecting dots. And I could be wrong on a lot of this stuff. And my timing could be off. It might not be this year. Could be next year. But I think this is the order of events. Logically speaking, if Magog is Russia, and Russia is destroyed before we are changed, we're going to see that too. We'll see the destruction of an invasion of the United States. We'll also see the destruction, fire coming down on Russia and other coastal places. And then we'll be changed from mortal to immortal. And then on the 8th day, we're going to be raptured, caught up to God and to his throne. There's a lot of drama. And we're also going to see whatever the third of the angels that Satan casts to the earth, whatever that is. So our rapture is not going to be on a normal day. That just looks like, peace and safety, that we're just headed into a normal day. And the other thing is, we can kind of see it coming. We can see the day approaching. But when it actually happens, most people are going to be caught unaware. They'll have no idea what is going on. And they'll be just scared out of their wits. But for those of us who have an understanding of the prophetic word and are connecting things together and are looking at what's playing out on the world stage and viewing all of that also in conjunction with dreams and visions that people have, it's not hard to understand the order of events. So I'll go over them one more time. The collapse of the United States is inevitable. It must happen before we're raptured. Russia and China will probably invade the United States right about the time that China invades Taiwan. But at the same time, Russia is going to invade Israel to take a spoil. After a short invasion that God initiates, he's the one who puts the hook in the jaw of Gog. After a short invasion, God is going to bring it to an end. Okay, people in Israel will know that God is the Lord. There's going to be the conversion of 144,000 of Israel. However many that is, it's a symbolic number, but a lot of people are going to come to Christ. They're going to believe in him and be filled with the Holy Spirit. In addition, many other people are going to come to Christ too. The remnant of Israel will also receive some kind of preparation so that when the abomination takes place, they'll know that they need to flee and not go back to their house and pack their bags and all of that. It'll be a very short window of opportunity that they have to leave Jerusalem to go into the wilderness. And all of this is in the context of a very large satanic agenda that Satan has had in play. And the goal is to take down this present world system, of which the United States is a big part of it, as well as European countries and the UN and the Vatican and City of London and central banking and, there's just so many entities that are a part of this system, corporations and conglomerations and institutions. It's breathtaking in its scope. But Satan is going to get rid of all of that. Okay, he's going to destroy that system that he's been using in favor of his son and all the fallen angels who are going to become body snatchers and take over the world using host bodies. Yeah, real scary stuff. This is like something that's out of a science fiction movie, only worse because it's not a movie. It's going to be reality. So, and then about 5 months after we're raptured, that's when that whole world system will be taken down. The harlot will be destroyed, the first destruction, and that is when the beast will begin to reign. There's only about 5 months between our rapture and when the beast begins to reign and the mark is instituted and all the fallen ones will be here on earth, and it's going to be unbelievable, unbelievably frightening. But before the harlot is destroyed, Satan is going to actually use the harlot one more time, and that is to instigate a 10-day persecution and tribulation of people who've come to Christ, people who've become believers during the last days. There'll be 10 days of persecution, and these are the fifth seal martyrs. So many people are going to die. I mean, it's like bloodshed, unbelievable bloodshed that will take place, where Christians will willingly lay down their lives for the sake of Christ. When you understand that book of Revelation is not written as one like long chronology, but basically has elements of multiple storylines that are taking place, and that numerous things are happening on the same day at the same time, that it's such a complex story that, to me, how God was, I don't want to say able, because he's able to do all kinds of things, but the simplicity and the economy of imagery and language that's present in the visions of Revelation that John saw is absolutely breathtaking and mind-blowing. I am amazed, and how the scriptures have all been brought into this one book where we can get sort of the great big picture of what's going on. And all of this is spiritual. This is a spiritual world that is being expressed in the physical world. It's mind-blowing. Thanks for watching the video, and if you're a part of this premiere video, thanks for participating in the online chat. If you're interested in looking at how I see these event lines of Revelation taking place and what things coincide with what other events, I hope you'll download the timeline spreadsheet. We have it in English, we've got it in French, and now we have it in Portuguese. Take a look at how these things are going to play out. And I'm just thankful that God is showing us how these things are going to play out. He's put it in His prophetic word so that we're not caught unawares, so that we're not caught not knowing what's happening. Okay, we are going to be able to understand totally what the collapse is all about, when the wars take place, what they're all about, and that when we see these really bad things happening, we can lift up our heads and know that our redemption is drawing nigh. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, at least that it's food for thought for you. And like I said, you don't have to agree with anything I say, but I hope you found it interesting anyway. So we'll see you on another video. Till then, have a blessed day.